core standards in today's USA Today, it's on page 3, it quotes David Coleman, one of the standards authors, as saying, the Common Core standards will be a major shift in philosophy, requiring more history, arts, and science, and English and reading classes, and less fiction. This article also points out that the core standards will require more depth in history, compelling teachers and students to focus more on a handful of significant topics in history than is currently the case. If that article is right, if that is true, then welcome to National History Day, where depth and focus have been the philosophy to the instruction of history since 1974. National History Day is a nationwide academic contest for students from grades 6 to 12 in which more than 500,000 students participate nationwide each year. This past Saturday, high school sophomores Myra Malagon, Vanessa Malagon, and Moses Marinday, and also Myra's 6th grade sister, Daniela Cervantes of Madison, traveled to Indianapolis where they all captured first place in Indiana in their respective divisions. Myra, Vanessa, and Moses in group performance, and Daniela in individual performance. This qualifies them, as Mr. Akers said, to represent Indiana in the national finals in Washington, D.C. in June. Now, since September, they've been studying the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott by reading multiple long nonfiction texts, not snippets in history books, but entire books. And reading 8 months' worth of the 1955 to 1956 Montgomery Advertiser, which they sent down to Montgomery to bring up here. Every year, National History Day has a theme for students to explore. This year's theme is Revolution, Reaction, and Reform. And so, as you watch their performance, listen for that theme to appear. With that, I'll turn it over to the students, whom my wife and I affectionately refer to as the kids. The kids. Take it away.
Myra Malagon.
Vanessa Malagon.
Moses Marinday.
The Montgomery bus protest. Reaction leads to reform for justice.
The year was 1955.
And boys wanted just one thing. They coonskin caps so they could become Davy Crockett, king of the Wild Frontier.
You know, my friends, there comes a time that people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression.
People celebrated Roger Bannister breaking the unbreakable 4-minute mile.
Others celebrated the opening of Disneyland.
There comes a time, my friends, that people get tired of being plunged across the abyss of humiliation, where they experience the bleakness and nagging despair.
Teenage girls celebrated as Elvis Presley signed his first record contract with RCA Records. These were happy days in the USA.
There comes a time, my friends, that people get tired of being pushed out of the glittering sunlight of life's July, and left standing amid the piercing chill of an alpine November. There comes a time.
In 1955, life was good, if you were white.
But for people like me, things are not going so well. Jim Crow laws enacted in the South overcame the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. The 13th Amendment ended slavery. Jim Crow kept us in our place. The 14th Amendment granted us equal protection under the law. Jim Crow separated us under the law. The 15th Amendment gave us the vote. Jim Crow denied us the vote. Jim Crow forced us to go to separate schools.
Use separate drinking fountains.
And give up seats on buses.
We reacted to 90 years of Jim Crow, and there grew 1955, only after countless indignities and injustices.
In 1949, I, Joanne Robinson, an African-American English professor, was thrown off a bus for sitting in an empty white section.
Get up from there! Get up from there!
The anger, hurt, and shame still burn. Humiliation. How long will this go on?
In 1952, I, Thomas Brooks, was killed for refusing to get off the bus and ran through the back. I paid for dignity with my life. Humiliation, murder. How long will this go on?
In 1955, I, Claudette Colvin, along with Mary Louise Smith, reacted against the bus segregation laws as teenagers by refusing to give up our seats.
I don't pay my dime, I ain't got no reason to move.
We were then arrested. Humiliation, murder, injustice. How long will this go on?
In 1955, I, Rosa Parks, was thrown into jail for reacting against the bus segregation laws.
Why do you push us all around?
I don't know, but the law is the law, and you're under arrest.
Humiliation, murder, injustice, mistreatment. How long will this go on?
Until we react.
React how?
Protest!
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 When Joanne Robinson was humiliated, we didn't react.
When Thomas Brooks was murdered, we didn't react.
When Claudette Colvin and Mary Louise Smith were arrested, we didn't react.
It's time for reform.
In
1955, the African Americans of Montgomery, Alabama, reacted against the injustices of the Jim Crow laws with a nonviolent bus protest that reformed the city bus segregation laws and launched a nationwide civil rights revolution.
On the night of December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks, a quiet, dignified African-American woman, got arrested. When Fred Gray, one of the only two African-American lawyers in Montgomery, heard the news, he met with Joanne Robinson, a feisty activist who a decade earlier helped create the Women's Political Council.
Hello, Fred.
Joanne had some bad news.
What is it?
Rosa Parks has just been arrested, and she's being charged with violating the city bus segregation laws. Now it's our chance to react to a protest. Remember Ellery Jones's, Mary Louise Smith's, and Claudette Colvin's stories of mistreatment that finally led them to say enough. We can finally go through with your idea to protest the buses.
You mean the letter I wrote for the Women's Political Council a year and a half ago to Mary Gale?
Yes, what did you ask for? I might be able to make the legal case.
Well, I have it right here. 1. A city law that would make it possible for Negroes to sit from back towards front, and whites from front towards back, until all seats were taken. 2. That Negroes not be asked or forced to pay fares at the front of the bus and enter through the rear. And 3. That buses stop at every corner in residential sections.
Yes, it's time to push these reforms.
Joanne Robinson stayed up all night mimeographing 35,000 leaflets to be handed out everywhere in the community.
We have to get these leaflets distributed.
What does it read?
It reads that another African-American woman has been arrested for refusing to give up her seat for a white man, and it's going for a one-day bus protest on Monday, December 5th.
That sounds great. I'll go hand them up to the schools.
And I'll hand them downtown.
And I'll hand them out to the churches.
The one-day bus protest was successful. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his first major speech as president of the newly formed Montgomery Improvement Association.
Yes, there comes a time that people get tired. We will protest courageously and yet with dignity and Christian love. When the history books are written, in the future generations, the historians will pause and say, we loved a great people, a black people, who injected new meaning and dignity into the veins of civilization. That is our challenge, our overwhelming responsibility.
Protesting with the weapon of love. Now that's a revolutionary idea.
Is that going to work? They're using bombs and bullets against us.
So after a day of protest, as the president of the Montgomery Improvement Association, I ask you, the wonderful Negroes in Montgomery, if you wish to continue this protest, because we are not wrong in what we are doing.
I say we keep this protest going.
Yes, if we are wrong, the Supreme Court of this nation is wrong.
If we are wrong, God Almighty is
If
wrong.
we are wrong, justice is a lie.
And we are determined,
All
right
right.
here in Montgomery, to work and fight.
Yes, sir.
Until justice runs down like water,
Say it.
and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Amen.
4 days later, Joanne Robinson and Fred Gray met with Mayor Gale.
Mayor Gale, Fred and I have come here today to discuss our 3 requests for the city bus line. They are as following. 1. For bus drivers to be more courteous and polite. 2. For the hiring of African American drivers. And 3. For the first come, first served seating arrangement.
Now, Mayor Gale, we are not asking for an end to segregation, but we don't like the idea of Negroes having to stand on their vacant seats. We're demanding justice on this point.
Mayor Gale dismissed the request, saying that 1. Bus drivers were already courteous and polite. 2. He could not tell the private bus companies what kind of bus drivers to hire. And 3. He could not change the state law.
Joanne, I'm going to file lawsuits against that man.
It's about time.
The lawsuit known as Browder v. Gale challenged the state and city laws as unconstitutional. During this time, the homes of Martin Luther King Jr. and 3 other movement leaders' houses were bombed.
This is the last straw. I am not going to sit around and let more white folks bomb the house of our pastors, especially when it's Reverend King's home. Whose home is next? Our home?
Yes, and whatever kids are inside those houses. Reverend King, we want to fight back.
Settle down, settle down. If you have weapons, take them home. You must meet hate with love. Gandhi made a revolution without firing a shot, and so can we.
We did settle down that night. We did meet hate with love, and we continued to react non-violently. But Mayor Gale was done negotiating. He instituted a Get Tough policy.
He sued the Montgomery Improvement Association for running what he called an illegal carpool system.
He arrested me for driving just 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, and many others for minor violations.
He arrested 90 of us for breaking an old 1921 boycott law stating that boycotting was illegal.
As president of the Montgomery Improvement Association, I held meetings in African American churches to keep our spirits strong.
Meanwhile, the White Citizens Council is meeting by the thousands in sports arenas, but he strategized ways to intimidate the protesters and maintain segregation.
In June, the district court declared the bus segregation laws as unconstitutional. This was immediately appealed by Mayor Gale.
On November 13, 1956, the Supreme Court upheld the June ruling of Browder v. Gale. 1 month later, when the judges finished writing their decision, Martin Luther King Jr. spoke at his church, Dexter Avenue Baptist.
Now we must not take this as a victory, but merely with dignity. Go back to the buses with quiet pride. We must have the courage to continue to react against the segregation of Jim Crow non-violently.
On December 21, 1956, the Montgomery bus protest came to an end. The one-day boycott became 381 days of walking and carpooling that brought about equal accommodation on buses. But not everyone thought this protest caused the reform. An African-American lawyer named Thurgood Marshall said,
All that walking for nothing.
because to him, it was the legal system who solved the problem.
We disagree. The unity of 50,000 people walking in protest pushed the court systems to enforce the ruling when it came down.
This protest marked the beginning of the end of segregation laws.
It led to the emergence of Martin Luther King Jr. as a civil rights leader.
This nonviolent protest was later modeled in future parts of the civil rights movement. For example, the 1961 lunch counter sit-ins, 1961 Freedom Rides, and 1963 Children's March in Birmingham.
Today, the Montgomery bus protest is seen as the start of the civil rights movement, sometimes called the Second American Revolution, which led to the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act.
Today, anyone can sit anywhere on the bus, with whomever they want.
Today, the newest and final memorial stands on the National Mall in honor of Martin Luther King Jr., an unknown pastor in 1955, but today one of the giants in American history.
For years and years, I've been talking about how I didn't want the children that came along behind me after suffering the indignities that I've suffered all these years. Well, I've changed my mind. I'd like to enjoy some of that freedom myself. Joanne, Joseph, how are you?